the F1 Focus Podcast with Welman and Hendrik Verwoerd.
Welcome back to Formula One Focus with my friend Hendrik Verwoerd. We have a lot to talk about. Road rage incidents, garage rage incidents, and some other rage incidents. Welcome back, Hendrik.
Yes, the temper certainly flared on Sunday at the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona.
Well, I think the tempers flared on Saturday as well, apparently, but we'll get to that just now. Talk to me about Max Verstappen. Firstly, initially denying that he did anything untoward, and then later on in a sort of a social media post saying that something happened that shouldn't have happened. What's your take on the Max Verstappen George Russell incident?
Yeah. Look, I mean, he was in a situation where he was absolutely enraged. There's no doubt about that. And I think true to form, we've seen that on more than one occasion in the past. The red mist came down. And he did something that is completely unacceptable. And there were some pundits rather, who called for him to be disqualified. And I think there's probably some good reason for that. But I don't think that Formula One is willing to go that far as somebody like Verstappen is concerned. But anyway, that's another debate. If you deliberately crash into somebody else, where do you draw the line? Can you do it in a slow corner? Then it's fine. Then it's a 10-second penalty afterwards. Or if it's, what happens if it's in a flat-out corner at 300 k's an hour? If you deliberately do that, Senna did something like that. And in fact, Michael Schumacher also did something like that. So, Schumacher at least was penalized. Let's not dwell on that. I just want to quickly go back to the situation that Verstappen found himself in, and I think there's a parallel to be drawn between that situation and the one that Lewis Hamilton found himself in 2021 in Abu Dhabi, where Max Verstappen was the guy who benefited from that whole situation. If you remember, Hamilton was leading the race. The safety car was called. And Verstappen was behind him, and Hamilton, obviously as the leader, knew that everybody behind him was going to get the opportunity of going into the pits and changing to brand new tires. And the dilemma was, should he do the same or should he not? Eventually, of course, he did not. He chose not to go out or to go in and change tires. And yes, in the first two corners after the restart, he was overtaken, and in that way, he lost his title. That's a very short version of a very complicated situation. But I think the parallel is that in this case, in Spain, 2 days ago, Verstappen found himself in virtually exactly the same situation. He was leading the race. He had track position, obviously, in a safety car period, and he knew that everybody behind him was going to go into the pits and change to brand new soft tires, or at least new, another set of usable soft tires, and he knew that he was going to be overtaken. And the dilemma he found himself in, and the team found themselves in, was should they call him in for him to change and thereby lose track position and be able to attack, or should they not? Eventually, of course, they did. They did call him in, and the only option in terms of tires that they had was an unused set of hard tires, which was impossible to get up to full temperature and operating condition, in the few laps that were remaining. So he would have at best he would have finished in third position, and maybe he would have been able to defend himself against Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari. But then, of course, we know what happened. He wasn't happy with the hard tires. And the reason why they only had the hard tires was because they won a three-stop strategy, and they probably planned on that for the entire weekend. Most teams, if not all teams, had found that the hard tire was not a good tire unless you run a very, very long stint with it. So nobody actually used the hard tire. But they were on a three-stop strategy, and it would have worked for them with the tires that they had at their disposal. But then, of course, with the safety car period, they were forced into a fourth stop. And the only option tire option that they had was the hard tire. He could probably have put on a set of used softs, but they already had 6 or 7 laps on them, so it was doubtful whether that would have worked also. But anyway, so that's part of the reason why he found himself in that position. He was unhappy with the tires. He was frustrated after he was overtaken both by George and then by Charles Leclerc. And he found himself in a situation where he wanted to, take it out on George.
I think he wanted to take it on George because he was forced to give back a penalty that afterwards, the steward said that he shouldn't have had to give the place back. The point was he felt that maybe George did something untowards and he wanted to take revenge on it. I mean, George was out of control, like you mentioned, or maybe not in total control, let's put it like that rather. And that forced Max off the road into the escape road, and then he gained or retained his position. Storm in a teacup. There's not so much what caused his rage. It's the fact that he was so enraged that he actually used his car as a weapon. And that's a problem. Like you said, at the slow speed, maybe it's not that important, but that's just not on, especially not from a world champion.
Yeah, and as I said, true to form. We've seen that on a number of occasions in the past, and that is why he got the penalties on his license, and why he's now in a situation where if something similar happens again, he's probably going to face not probably. If something similar happens, he is going to have to sit out one race, which sets up a whole another scenario that we can talk about for Red Bull. But yes, it's so disappointing, really. George mentioned it after the race that it didn't do Max any favors. It didn't, there are millions of youngsters watching these guys in action and try to emulate them on the racetrack. If you see somebody like Verstappen, who's got a huge following around the world through all ages. That's not a good example to set. Besides the point that it could be dangerous, as I said earlier on. What happens if you allow this? Where do you draw the line? It can turn out to be very dangerous. It is certainly not something that one can just, talk away and say it doesn't matter, as Max said after the race. He said, does it really matter? Yes, of course it matters. So unfortunately, that's true to form, and that's why he's got all these penalty points behind his name.
We'll get to the penalties just now. What was interesting to me is after the race, he didn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about one incident in the entire race, which sort of brushes it under the carpet. But the day after, he sort of acknowledged that he made a mistake. Do you think he was forced into it, or why would he do that? That's not Max. He never acknowledges that he was wrong.
Well, let's hope that he's grown. That as a person he has grown and has learned that you Max can make mistakes, and you should acknowledge the fact that if you do make a mistake, you should acknowledge it. So I'm gonna be positive about the whole thing, and maybe he realized afterwards that there's absolutely no way that he can defend that, and that he would have to acknowledge the fact that he had made a mistake and that what he did was unacceptable. So let's be generous and let's assume that he's learned his lesson, and let's hope for his sake that something like that doesn't happen again. I have my doubts, though. I think it's relatively easy afterwards to say sorry, I shouldn't have done it. But that doesn't mean the next time when you find yourself in a similar situation that you're not going to do it again. If it's just part of the nature of the man, I think we're going to see similar. I said at the beginning of the season we're going to see incidents with Max Verstappen and the guys who are challenging him on the track. Now we've seen it, and we've only had 9 races out of 24. There's plenty of scope left for similar situation to develop again, and for him to react again. I would not be surprised if he does it again, and that is something that the team should be very concerned about.
Right, let's talk about the team being concerned. You mentioned the penalties. You've got all the history there. Max needs to be on his best behavior, basically till the end of time almost, not to get an F1 race ban coming up soon. And like I said, talk to me about the penalties. He's on 11. Who's next? How long does he have to go before some of these penalties start falling away so he can breathe a bit lighter? Tell me the story.
Let's just remind ourselves that these penalty points accumulate throughout the course of a 12-month period, not a calendar year, but a 12-month period. In other words, the points that you get on the penalty points that you get on your driver's license, your super license, they last for 12 months, regardless of whenever you were given that penalty. So Max is now sitting on 11. When you have 12, the moment that you get 12 points on your super license, you cannot take part in the next race. You are banned for the next race. So he's on 11 at the moment. That means that, if he gets another point, then obviously he's going to face a race ban. So where is he at the moment? You asked who's the next one. Max has got 11. The next one is Liam Lawson on 6. So there's nobody else that's really in a realistic position of danger that they could be facing a race ban. It's only Max, and I think that in itself says enough.
The defending world champion. Nudge, nudge,
so he's on 11. The next 2 points on his license expire on the 30th of June. And they were awarded for him causing the collision with Lando Norris in the Austrian Grand Prix last year. You'll remember that duel that they had into that turn 3, it is, I think. So he got 2 points for that, and they expire on the 30th of June. And that is, of course, at the conclusion of this year's Austrian Grand Prix. So that you see what I mean by 12 months. So after this year's Austrian Grand Prix, those 2 points fall away, and then he's on 9 points. But then he's got 9 points, and these next 2 points that only expire on the 27th of October this year. And they were awarded for him for forcing Lando Norris off track during the 2024 Mexican Grand Prix. So that means until the end of the Mexican Grand Prix this year, he still has to make sure that he doesn't get another 3 points. He will be on 9, but until the end of the Mexican Grand Prix, he has to be very careful not to get another 3, because then he will be facing a race ban again. Now, let's just look at the calendar. We have now had 9 races. So that means that for Canada and for Austria, he's got to be careful not to get another 1 point. And if that doesn't happen, then he's got to go through until the end of October and avoid getting another 3 points. So that means for the British Grand Prix, for the Belgian Grand Prix, including a sprint, for the Hungarian Grand Prix, for the Dutch Grand Prix, for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, for Azerbaijan, for the Singapore Grand Prix, then the United States Grand Prix at Austin, that includes a sprint, and then the Mexico City Grand Prix. So all those races, all those main Grand Prix and the 2 sprint races, he will have to avoid another 3 points on his license. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that I'll be willing to put money on it that he won't be involved in another incident for all those events until the end of October. So I think, it's a situation that the team really finds themselves in, that I'm sure that they don't want to be in, but they have to, take into account that it could happen. And so therefore, what do they do? Who do they replace him for that race if it happens? And that's the dilemma that I think that they are facing at the moment.
Who do you think the candidates are? I mean, Isaac Hadjar is doing so well in Racing Bulls. Liam Lawson is a shell of the man he was before. I saw someone describe Yuki Tsunoda that when he takes off his helmet, looks like a haunted man. He's a broken man. So who's left? I mean, who's the reserve driver?
It is a problem. It is a problem. So let's see. They've got 2 official reserve drivers. One is Ayumu Iwaza, a young Japanese driver who has driven a modern Aston Martin Formula 1 car, and another youngster in Formula 2 who's making big waves in Formula 2 and being regarded as the next big thing. He's a Swedish Brit called Arvid Lindblad. So those are 2 options. Of course, none of them will be ideal because of their lack of experience. And you put them into the number 1 Red Bull car, that's a bit of to put it mildly, a bit of a risk. So what do? Do you put Isaac Hadjar in there because he's really been impressive this season? And I think that's probably, if they have to, that's probably the most viable alternative. If we remember how his season started in Australia when he went off in the wet on the parade lap and he was in tears afterwards, and had the arm over his shoulder from Anthony Hamilton. And now, I mean, he's the guy who's been scoring the most points behind, apart from Max Verstappen, in the entire Red Bull camp. So he's absolutely an alternative, I think. Liam Lawson, will he be willing to go back to the team that fired him after 2 races? I don't think he would be willing, be a good idea for him to do that. So what else do you do? What about I don't know what they do. What about Danny Ricciardo? Can they recall Danny Ricciardo back?
Got Daniel Kvyat for that matter. I mean, you can go back in history. There's so many drivers have raced for them before. No.
Yeah. uh, maybe they could go to Mexico.
Well, there's the driver waiting for a phone call, I'm sure. No, Sergio.
Yeah,
Still not.
yeah, Checo, I think, is probably relatively far advanced in his negotiations with Cadillac for next year. So I'm not sure that he's going to be willing to take this risk. But then again, this is the situation that Red Bull finds themselves in, and I think it's all of their own making. They've got a car that only Max Verstappen can drive. Clearly, I mean, as even Yuki Tsunoda has now demonstrated in, what is it, 7 races that he's now done for them, and I think he's only scored 7 points. So, it's a team that has built and designed a car that is only capable to be driven by Max Verstappen. And if they lose him, they are in serious trouble as to replace him with.
And they're probably going to lose him to Aston Martin. Talking of which, garage rage, what I call it. And you said Sunday, but it was Saturday after Q2. Apparently, he lost his temper a little bit, and then lo and behold, he couldn't race on Sunday. I know I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but that just smells that something is off there. What's the story there?
Well, I'm not sure because nobody's talking, and unfortunately, I do not have a hotline to to Lance Stroll. So the story is that if people remember, just before the start of the 2023 season, Lance Stroll was involved in a bicycle accident. He had some bad injuries to both his hands and I think to one of his legs as well. And he sat out
broke his toe, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and then he had to sit out the preseason testing. But 2 weeks after that, he was in the car and he was racing in the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2023. And the story now is apparently that over the last few months, the pain in his one hand after the procedure that he had undergone for that accident. The pain has been there, but he'd been willing to drive through the pain. But now it's becoming unbearable, and the medical team behind him has advised him to rather, undergo a procedure to fix it up and to make sure that he can, in fact, continue driving for the team. But you alluded to the timing, and I think there's probably something to be said for the poor timing. How come it was painful for the last few months? But how come just after he had a bad qualifying session in Spain on the Saturday, in which by more than one account he had lost his temper, or he was upset, as the team had acknowledged, he was upset. And just after that, it was announced by the team that his hand was so sore that he couldn't drive on Saturday, and he had to go on Sunday, and he had to undergo a procedure. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's probably quite easy to surmise that he was more than upset, and that there was probably a banging of the fist against some hard object, and that could have aggravated the injury. So who knows? But I mean, this is also a situation for the team to, what do they do now? 2 weeks from now, well, less from where we're recording, it's the Canadian Grand Prix. It's his home Grand Prix. It's his father, obviously, Lawrence Stroll's favorite Grand Prix, being a Canadian. So, they would obviously like to see him there. Are they going to risk it that he goes and drives the car in an unfit medical condition and aggravates the situation, or do they be level-headed about the situation and replace him with someone? And that's the discussion. What do they do, and who, if they have to, who do they replace him with?
Interesting, some candidates there. Felipe Dragovic, the obvious one. Stoffel van Doorn as well, maybe. But apparently they're both racing in Le Mans that weekend, so they might not be available. And I think if you talk about bad luck, Dragovic, I mean, Formula 2 champion 2022, one of those special talents, made the mistake of signing up with Aston Martin, probably seeing the future, lit up right in front of him, but then ending up in a team where daddy's boy is always going to be there, and the other drivers, Fernando Alonso. I really hope that guy gets a chance. Maybe he can wiggle out of Le Mans, but I mean, you should take this chance. Remember Kevin Magnussen had a similar problem when Haas wanted him back. He made a plan. He came back. You have to be back in Formula 1 to be able to qualify. What do you think?
Yeah, I think obviously, for a young man like Filipe Drugovich, Formula One is the priority, and I'm pretty sure that if he's given the choice, either you drive for, I'm not sure, it's Cadillac or Peugeot,
Yeah, one of the
one of the
two.
two teams that he's driving for this weekend. What would he choose? And I'm pretty sure that if he gets given the choice, he would have no hesitation at all to choose the Formula One option, because that will be a great opportunity for him to show what he can do. He has driven that car in free practice before this year, so he's familiar with the car, and he's obviously spent a lot of time in the simulator, because that's one of the roles of a reserve driver. So he'll be quite up to speed. He's much younger than Stoffel van Duren, so I think Drugovich is probably ahead of van Duren in the queue. Um, I think, and obviously, the testing weekend for Le Mans is this coming weekend. So they would probably have to tell him that he's going to drive for you're going to drive for us. So get here soon. So that at least the team that he leaves can have the opportunity of getting somebody else in the team, so that they could go through the testing period over the weekend before the race. So. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a dilemma, but I think we should expect, by all rights, a decision either way this weekend. By this week. Yes, they're going to replace him with whoever, or they are not going to replace him, and he's going to continue. I know that he's already undergone the procedure, so I don't know whether they're going to give an update on his prospects, on what his prognosis is for the Canadian Grand Prix. I don't know what the nature of the procedure is, how serious it is, and how long obviously it's going to take for him to recover from it. So, but we should have more details on that for the coming weekend. There is, of course, another option for Aston Martin, and being a Mercedes customer team, they can obviously draw on the services of Valtteri Bottas. Which I think it would not be a bad bad option for them. Although, of course, he's a little bit older, and maybe his options in Formula One are starting to dwindle. But maybe for just a one race, it could be an option. Although, if they ask my advice, I would tell them, take Felipe, he's the future.
I agree. The thing
And the other thing, one can also maybe think about now. I think this is probably a little bit on the far-fetched end of the spectrum. But if something like this turns out to be a little bit more serious than what they're making it out to be, it could be a face-saving out for the team to get rid of Lance. It could be a face-saving opportunity for his father, Lawrence, to say, look, I had to replace him in the team because of medical reasons. It's not because he's not capable, or that he shouldn't be in Formula One. But it's because of medical reasons that we have decided to replace him. And I'm not saying it's going to happen this season, but it could possibly be an open door, or open back door for them for next season. I still think that if Lawrence is really as serious as he makes it out to be, I've said this before, then he has to get somebody else who's better and more consistently quick than his son, who on occasion has impressed, but only on occasion. To partner Fernando Alonso, if they are serious about becoming a challenger for victory and for the championship. There's no question about Alonso's abilities. How long is he going to stay? Maybe another year or so. But they have to get somebody else there next to him that is able to score the points and to drag the team up into the higher echelons of the field in Formula One. So maybe this is an opportunity for them that could play out in that way.
I want to talk to you about McLaren. And what I want to talk to you about is when Mercedes was dominating in the hands of Lewis Hamilton, and when Red Bull was dominating in the hands of Max Verstappen, nobody questioned the legality of the car. But now the McLaren is in the hands of either Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri, who are not supposed to be, or not seen as yet in the same sort of league as those two drivers, Max and Lewis. Everybody's questioning the legality of the McLaren. And this game-changing technical directive that was introduced over the weekend came to absolutely nothing. The McLaren still dominated. They dominated qualifying. They dominated long runs, practices, everything. Came race time, Oscar Piastri won his 5th race of the year. And the one thing I want to say about those two Formula One McLaren drivers is that Oscar seems to have sort of settled in his mind that he can win and he will do it. Lando still struggles with that sort of a little bit of self-doubt, maybe a little bit of a lack of belief. But the point I'm trying to make is, can people start accepting that McLaren is just simply a very, very well-designed car? And the problem is that they're not cheating or anything. It's not tire water or anything, or flexing wings or anything like that. It's just a better car. And that maybe those other teams should start looking at themselves to find the solution. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Although, this is always to be expected when you're at the front. It's not quite true that Mercedes was never challenged. I mean, Red Bull and Christian Horner quite often in that time challenged the legality of the Mercedes, and there were one or two technical directives that were aimed at rectifying the fact that the car was legal. But that's to be expected at the front. There were, when Red Bull was dominating many years ago, 15 or so years ago.
No, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the Sebastian Vettel era.
Yeah.
There were questions about the legality of their diffuser, and they charged diffuser setup on many occasions. And so it's normal for the leading teams to be challenged by those behind them. It's the way that Formula One is. It's the way it's always been, and the way it's always going to be. Because what you are trying to do as the chasing team is you're trying to upset the leading team. You're trying to cause upheaval in the team, or you're trying to cause them to lose focus and to look at somebody else or something else that they are not supposed to look at if they want to stay ahead. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to unsettle your leading opponent. And every team does that. Every team that is chasing the championship does that. So that's nothing new. But yes, you're absolutely right. Nothing really came of the higher load tests on both the front and the rear wings for the cars, and the strengthening of the front wings. So that was needed. In terms of the pecking order, nothing came of that. Some of the drivers did say that they found a little bit different in terms of the handling of the car. I think that's to be expected. If you have less flex in your wing, you're going to have a little bit less downforce, a little bit. But that certainly is not the game changer that Frederick Vasseur referred to before the start of the season, and what few people expected. You'll remember last week when we spoke, I said I didn't think that there would be a lot of change, and that's the way it turned out. And yes, teams should, in theory, on paper, now start looking at themselves and say, let's forget about trying to upset and unsettle the leaders. Let's look at the way we're doing it. I'm sure they do it already. But again, that's Formula One. You are always going to play some psychological game in a way to try and unsettle your opposition.
Interesting thing for me is how, Formula One, which we love, it's not just about the drivers, it's not just about the cars, it's also about the people behind the scenes, the team managers, team principals, playing such a big role. You go back to John Todd's days, Rory Braun as a designer, the Rory Braun, Michael Schumacher, John Todd sort of triumvirate at Ferrari. Adrian Newey, obviously the best known one, and the one I like that's been popping up now lately is Rob Marshall, who was with Red Bull for 18 years and now with McLaren. He's now suddenly the star designer, combined with Zach Brown and Andrea Stella and these two talented drivers. I think that's where the secret is. It's the talented people that Zach Brown has pulled together, and that's what's making this team so good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly the recipe for success. It's not the money necessarily. Yes, the money plays a role, but now these days with the budget caps, you only have so much money that you can spend in terms of improving the performance of your car. So it's the people that you have and the way that you can get them to work together and pull in one direction. That's been the secret for, as you say, for McLaren. Absolutely right. The secret for Mercedes in the past, the secret for Ferrari, for Red Bull in the past. And that is probably the reason why things are not quite working the way in which they were used to work at Red Bull and not at Ferrari either. Mercedes has lost a number of senior people to rival operations over the last few years or so. So maybe things are not quite working the way they have since the 22 introduction of the ground force. The ground effect cars. So that is the secret. It's absolutely the secret. Get the right people and get them to gel as a team and to pull in one direction. And that is exactly what Zach Brown has been able to do at McLaren.
One team that caught everybody by surprise. Maybe a little bit of luck here or there, but that's suddenly Sauber ended fifth after the Max penalty. But I mean, still, he was in position to end fifth. It's just like it fell into his lap. If that suddenly turned the corner, as Jonathan Wheatley made such a big difference, Matteo Binotto talking about the right people in the right place. What happened to Sauber? Why are they doing so well suddenly, or was it a once-off?
Well, maybe Binotto has been able to get them to focus. Clearly, nobody before him was able to do that. And Jonathan Wheatley, I think it's a little bit too early to say that it's thanks to him. He will obviously have played a role as a team manager, but that's more got to do with strategy and how the team's operations work at the track. But yeah, they have brought some updates throughout the season so far, and for the Spanish Grand Prix, they brought some big updates, and clearly that was something that worked well for them. So yes, let's not forget, of course, that Nico Hulkenberg did benefit from the safety car. I don't think that he would have been in that position had there not been a safety car, and also he would not have been on a brand new set of soft tires. But I've got to say that it was strange to see the Sauber overtaking Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari.
I was about to say, that was quite.
That was just something that doesn't quite compute. I think it's a little bit early to say that they have now joined the midfield in terms of the racing, the performance of the car. Maybe we'll see at the circuit like the Ile de Notre Dame circuit in Montreal that it's a fast circuit, long straights, fast circuit, some tight corners. Maybe Sauber will be able to build on that, and then we will start to say that yes, they are starting on their upwards trajectory before they become Audi, which is going to be a great thing. It'll be fantastic if they can be part of that midfield battle behind the top four, and get Audi in a situation where they are not going to be the slowest factory team when they join. But Binotto has been the one that is overseeing this whole operation, and I would be surprised if it's not thanks to him. I'm convinced that it is thanks to him, pulling everybody in the same direction and pulling them together. So hopefully for them, and I personally have a real soft spot for Nico Hulkenberg, and I certainly hope that he can build on this and get some good results as the season progresses. Hopefully, maybe if it rains or snows or something, he can finish on the podium at some point.
Yeah. He's never been on a podium, man. Still not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to happen.
I remember seeing him racing in the A1 GP series, many years ago. When he completely dominated. That was about 20 years ago, I think.
Can't believe it.
Completely dominated for Team Germany. And that's where we sort of picked him up and said, this man, we need to get him into Formula One. And unfortunately for him, he's never been in the right team at the right time.
Lastly, I just want to talk about two drivers who seem to not be all that happy with the teams they're in at the moment. And I don't even have to mention them. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Firstly, Lewis Hamilton. And secondly, Carlos Sainz. For all the good talk about Carlos Sainz fitting in and making such a change, there's still a lot of something. There's something there. Some unhappiness, some unease maybe. And then Lewis has made no mistake. Has made no secret of the fact that he's not happy, and it's the worst race he's ever been in. He actually apologized to this guy commentator now I said about blanking him in the interview. Do you think we might see the end of Lewis Hamilton this year, just saying, listen, I've had enough of this rubbish now? And Carlos Sainz, do you think he really belongs in a team like Williams, or do you think he maybe thinks that he deserves to be in a bigger, better team?
Well, if we say that, if we ask the question, does Carlos Sainz belong in a team like Williams, we're making a huge assumption there. And the assumption is that the team does not deserve to be a front-running team. So again, I think I've had this sort of stock answer in the past. Let's not forget that these cars are absolutely on the edge of balance and performance. And the new guy coming in, getting used to not only the way the team works, but also the way that the car has to be dealt with. That's not an easy job. It's not an easy one for anybody. And that would go for Sainz, that would go for Hamilton. It goes for guys like Lawson and Bartoletto. Most of the guys who came into a new team this year, and I think it was in 8 of the 10 teams they had a new driver. The new driver has been struggling. Williams, I think, has had probably their worst race of the season so far, and they expected it. Let's not forget that Williams has already said that they are not focusing at all on developments for this year's car. They are focusing on next year's car, and if any of those developments can be applied to this year's car, they will bring them. But they are essentially coasting with the car that they have, and at some circuits they're going to have good performance, depending on the nature of the circuit and things like the weather conditions and so on. And at some circuits they're not going to have it. So again, one should have a longer view. I think a longer term view, especially with the cars that they are driving at the moment. Lewis Hamilton, always wears his, what is the expression, his heart on his sleeve. He always basically says what he feels, and if he feels down, he says he's down. And if he feels elated, he says and he shows that he's elated. That's the way that he's always been, and I don't think one should read too much into things like body language and even remarks that he's made so far. Let's not forget that I think after qualifying, he said that he was absolutely happy with the car. The car was brilliant. And then of course the race didn't quite work out that way. He's had an up and down season emotionally in terms of his adaptation with not only the SF25 but the Ferrari team as well. So things are going up and down there. Luckily for him, there hasn't been some acrimonious radio exchanges this last weekend. That's probably going to happen again this season. Yeah, I think one should be very careful to say it's the end of the road for anybody at this point. Hamilton, as I said in the past, he's got the longer term view. He's at Ferrari for the 2026 season, and I think Sainz as well has also said that this year is not his priority. It's his priority is to develop the car for next year, to help the team to develop next year's car. And the same for Hamilton, and I don't think one should draw too many conclusions.
Okay, Hendrik, I'm looking forward to next week. I want to know what's going to happen at Aston Martin specifically. Max will be on parole almost, or on probation. I suppose that's probably a better word. But yeah, I'm excited about that Aston Martin development. I think it's long overdue that Lance Stroll should have been shown the door and give somebody a chance that deserves to have a seat in that team. Thanks, man. I look forward to next week. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you then.
The F1 Focus Podcast with MV Welman and Hendrik Verwoerd.